So let's first talk about the introduction to assurance and other audit related services. So firstly, what is an assurance related engagement? An assurance engagement, as we have already studied this in AA, as well as I have given you an explanation during the first video itself. Assurance engagement is where a professional accountant evaluates or measures a subject matter. So audit is part of the assurance engagement. In audit engagement, the practitioner is evaluating the financial statements. Likewise, there are multiple things the auditor, the practitioner might evaluate. It could be the financial statement, it could be the forecast of the company, it could be the past taxation of the company, it could be just internal controls and systems, IT of the company, it could be performance, customer performance reviews of the company, it would be operations part of the company, etc. So ultimately an assurance engagement is a broader term. It involves where a practitioner reviews the subject matter and which is a responsibility of another party against a criteria. So he uses a criteria to review the subject matter which is a responsibility or which is prepared by someone, and he expresses his opinion on which the intended user with a level of assurance about the subject matter. So he will look at or he will review the subject matter which is prepared by someone with a specific criteria that he follows. So to give an example, in audit, the auditor follows a criteria of international standards of auditing. In assurance engagement, likewise, there are criteria which are forming under ISAE 3000. So within international standards of assurance engagement 3000, he follows the specific guidelines to review any subject matter which are prepared by a responsibility party, and he will express an opinion on the subject matter to whom? To the intended user. Whoever is using that particular subject matter, he will give his opinion. He will give his opinion, but with a level of assurance. And what are the levels of assurance? Reasonable assurance and limited assurance. Reasonable assurance is where is a better assurance or it's a higher assurance. Limited assurance is very limited. It will be like, okay, I've just reviewed it, I did not find anything problem. Reasonable is where he will go much more deeper, collect evidences, much more evidences he will collect, and he will say that I have reviewed everything and I can say that it's true and fair. So that's a reasonable assurance. He's giving a positive opinion. Whereas in a limited assurance, he's giving a negative opinion. He's saying that I'm unable to find anything. I reviewed it, but I'm unable to find anything. So it's like, okay, saying it in a disclaimer saying that, okay, I might be wrong, but I didn't find anything. Right? So, professional firms not just be asked for assurance report, they can also be engaged to deliver number of audit related services. So, audit related services includes reviews, agreed upon procedures, compilations, etc. So, examples of reviews are, reviewing only one part of the company, let's say internal control reviews. Then due diligence review. So internal control means checking only the internal control of the company. Cash flow statement review. Company might, for the companies to apply for loans, they might review the cash flows of the company and give them a opinion. That is called as cash flow review. Or due diligence review. Due diligence means entire company's operational everything will be reviewed and an opinion will be given to the parent company who are going to go for a buyover. Agreed upon procedures. Agreed upon procedures means company agreeing along with the client to do certain procedures. So give you an example is when I was auditing a bank, the bank gave us a procedure where we review one report which is submitted to the regulator by the bank. So as an example, let's say for an AUP, so I'm going to talk about for a minute AUP. AUP is the agreed upon procedures. So we were the auditors, so we were in EY. EY was auditing a bank, okay, and we were acting as the auditors. Now this bank have various regulators, and like that one of the regulator is the central bank. So central bank is one of the regulator. Now the central bank asks always these banks to submit one regulatory filing. Okay, there is one regulatory filing. Okay, I'll call it as regulatory filing 1. Now, since their bank is submitting this regulatory filing, the bank had asked EY to review this regulatory filing and give them an opinion. So now if you look at from the bank's perspective, there are 2 subject matters they prepare. What are the 2 subject matters? So 2 subject matters. One is the financial statement. Second is the regulatory filing. Okay. And what did we do? What did EY did? Okay. EY, what did they do is they reviewed both. Okay. Through separate procedures. So EY would do an audit on financial statement, do an audit services on financial statement, and will do a review. And that review is called as agreed upon procedures. Now, what did we do when it comes to the review? Is called as a review of this regulatory filing. So review of regulatory filing. So we reviewed this entire regulatory filing and gave an opinion to the company. So that is called as agreed upon procedures. And when we did the review, we didn't do a reasonable assurance like audit. Like in audit, we have to collect a lot of evidence and everything. And these regulatory filings were prepared from the financial statements itself. On the basis of financial statement itself, this regulatory filing were prepared. So what did we do? We just took the regulatory filing, compared against the financial statement and asked for certain documents, and that's it. So now this is called as what? This is a reasonable assurance. This is what a reasonable assurance the EY gave. EY gave the reasonable assurance. So EY gave a reasonable assurance to whom? To the bank. So to the bank, they gave a reasonable assurance. So there will be an opinion. Now for the regulatory filing, what did they do for the regulatory filing? This regulatory filing was again, this is a limited or a, okay, I'll put it in, yeah, pink. So this was a limited, okay, not even limited, it's an AUP, so there will be a very less scope. So this was a limited assurance or a limited opinion that was given to the bank. So for audit services, we gave a reasonable opinion, but for the regulatory filing document they submitted to the regulator, we just took the regulatory document and compared it against the financial statement and agreed with them in first hand itself. These are only the reviews we are going to do. So that is called as agreed upon procedures. We just agreed firstly itself that what are the procedures we are going to perform on the reviewing the regulatory filing. All we did when we agreed is that we told them, okay, you know what, this is prepared based on financial statement. So we will compare against the financial statement and ask you a few questions. That's it. We did not do any other procedures. So that is called as reviews and agreed upon procedures. And in reviews, there are multiple types of reviews. Internal control reviews, due diligence reviews. Reviews is a much more deeper review that we do. But in agreed upon procedures, it's very basic. And we firstly agree what we are going to do with the client first. So in regulatory filing, which I did for the bank, we agreed with the client. In engagement letter itself, we had mentioned for the agreed upon procedures that these are the things that we are going to do. And even the assurance is less than limited. We just said that as per the procedures agreed, we have done that and we have not to report. That's it. It's less than limited assurance only we are giving. And then there are called as compilations, which are like, we are compiling the tax filings, a lot of things. So in compilations, it's also other assurance kind of an engagement, and it's also majorly a limited kind of an assurance that we give. So since we have know what are the different types of assurance engagement, let's talk in detail about IAS 300 assurance engagement. Here we are going to learn firstly what are the definitions of assurance engagement, what are the standards of assurance engagement, like under which standard does assurance engagement falls under, which is ISAE 3000, and what are the elements of assurance engagement, which we have already learned. We are also going to learn what are the different types of assurance So ISA 3000 provides standards and requirements for assurance engagement, majority of the assurance engagement, except for anything other than audit of reviews of historical financial information. And in substance, the standard requirements are, so let's look at this particular activity. Activity number 1, suggest 4 non-key financial performance measures that manufacturing business could use internally that a practitioner could be asked to report on in an assurance engagement. So what are the non-financial performance measures? 4 of them. So we can write down this, it's very simple, nothing complicated. The first one, it could be relating to the customers, right? So customer satisfaction surveys. So you can say customer satisfaction. Okay. Second would be relating to wastage of materials. Efficiency, could call for the efficiency test, wastage of materials, which is a non-financial indicator, like how much wastage are we doing for a manufacturing company, right? Then we can talk about the employees, staff turnover. It's a very simple but effective. It's an effective, performance indicator. Why? Because it tells us how good the company is. So if the staff turnover is very less, it means that less staff are actually going out of the company. So if the staff turnover is very more, then every year we are actually employing new employees, which means people are not sticking to our company. All right. Then another cases for manufacturing companies is items produced per employee. Okay. Then something which is very effective is also that staff ratings, staff feedback and ratings, specifically for companies like education company, like for us, right? So how is the rating of each lecturers is a good performance indicator of whether our app or whether our companies or whether our tuitions or classes are really good or not. We can check that. So these are the few examples of a key performance indicator for any non-financial key performance indicator for a manufacturing businesses. The second activity is, what are the risks our business exposed to as a result of unreliable IT systems? So if a company have unreliable IT systems, then what are the risks that they could be impaired with, or what are the risks they could be they could have, right? So first is like assets are misappropriated or tampered with. So let me write it down. So activity 2. Okay. 1, tampering of assets, stealing of inventory, stealing of machineries. So they could, or stealing of cash, etc. A classic example is Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs, very recently, I think 5 or 6 years back, there was a guy, a vice president, who actually stole around 10 crore of money from Goldman Sachs, and he was taking care of the payments part. So he was able to reroute the funds from the company's bank statement or bank accounts to to his personal account. So if the control systems are not good, or if they are able to access it somehow, then definitely the employees can tamper or misappropriate the assets. The second example is risk of unable to trade with the customer. So which is like service or revenue interruptions, business interruptions. So to give you an example, if there are some issues with our technology of our app itself, then definitely customers might not be able to watch the classes, or customers would not be able to watch our videos. Because of that, there could be customer dissatisfaction and loss of customers to a competitor. And at the same time, since the customer are unable to watch our videos, or students are unable to watch our videos, then definitely, they might not buy our classes again, etc. Then damage or system shutdowns. So the entire system could be down, which could damage the systems and, it could get cracked. So to give an example, a very simple example is if you are having a personal laptop and if there is no good antivirus, then definitely virus could attack our computers, due to which there could be shutting off the computers and laptops, and it might stop running, etc. Quite few years back, when the the laptops or the systems and softwares are not that good, we used to have this problem. There used to be a blue screen in when we were working in the computer. Suddenly the computer will show a blue screen, and that's because of virus attacks. So there will be a Trojan virus, a Trojan virus, and that might attack the computer, and suddenly when we are working, it will come a blue screen and everything will shut off. So that could quite frequently happen if our antivirus systems or IT systems are not good with. Then data leakage. This is something which is very seriously happening. Is we are giving unauthorized access, or we are giving our interest on something in social media. There could be a case of a data leakage. So confidential data could be stored, etc. And because of this data leakage, what will happen is that we might not be in compliance with the Data Protection Act. So Data Protection Act non-compliance. So since we are leaking the data, or we are giving the data of the private data of many customers, we are giving to someone, definitely there could be loss of reputation, and as well as Data Protection Act in certain countries like UK or European nations. There are Data Protection Act. If a company is leaking their private data, they could be fines, penalties, and even shutting off the businesses, etc. To give you an example is in India itself, you take the case of TikTok. Because they are leaking data, it was heard that they are leaking data to the China. Because of that, the government of India banned TikTok here, which means it was completely shut. PUBG is an example. There are data leakages that's happening. So because of this, spies are actually messaging within PUBG, so they stopped the company. So if we are not protecting the data, definitely there will be a lot of concerns to it. Even in US, a lot of regulations and legislation are brought up for companies like Facebook, Instagram, even very recently ChatGPT, OpenAI, where they are trying to regulate the data leakage, because it's a important part, and it's severely, because everyone is in social media and everyone is having a mobile phone. The data leakage is becoming a serious issue. So these are the major risk of an IT related issues that could happen if our IT systems are unreliable. All right. So I'm not saying that the entire assurance engagements will be part of ISE AE 3000, but there are other ESAs as well. IS AE 3400, IS AE 3402, ESA 402, etc., which covers various other kinds of assurance services. To give you an example, prospective financial information. So if a practitioner is reviewing prospective financial information, which means future aspects of a company, then, or future performance of a company, then they will be under IS AE 3400. If a practitioner is doing this, many of the companies who are going for mergers and acquisitions or even startup funding, they do due diligence reviews. And this has become very common these days. Various practitioners are started to do due diligence reviews. So a company who wants to buy another company would or invest in another company would appoint a practitioner who would go to the company, who will go to the seller company and check whether everything is okay. That is called as due diligence. It's a detailed review. So that's a due diligence review, which is becoming very common these days. Then there is something that's called as assurance reports on service organizations, which is part of 3402, assurance reports on controls of service organizations. This we have learned in previous chapter, in chapter number 7, with respect to ESA 402, where there are type 1 and type 2, where practitioners actually are going to check the controls of any service organizations. So if a company is there and a company outsources their payroll department, a company could appoint a practitioner to just check the controls of the payroll company. That's it, and give an opinion on the payroll company to a company. So that is also called as that would be coming under the part of ISAE 3402. Very much similar to that of audit requirements. Okay, standard requirements are very much similar to that of audit or review requirements, and they would include also the need for skepticism. So whenever you are doing assurance engagements, ISA 3000 says that you need to have a professional skepticism as well. So since it's very much similar to that of audit or review engagement, the assurance engagements, all the characteristics are very much similar to that of an audit or a review engagement. It will have a similar approach for any kind of acceptance planning and completion as well. So if you look at here, the practitioner would need to meet the requirements of both IESBA Code of Ethics and ISQM. So the Code of Ethics have to be met. The practitioner have to have the Code of Ethics before he accepts any professional engagement, as well as the quality management approach should also be required to be part of the terms of the engagement. He needs to have proper planning. Like he conducts an audit, the assurance engagement should also have proper planning. Before he starts the engagement, he should have proper planning for the engagement. The appropriateness of the subject matter and the suitability of the criteria to be used in the engagement should be assessed. So what is the subject matter he's gonna review? Whether it is relevant for him, whether the subject matter is complete, whether it can be reliable, whether it's neutral, and whether it's understandable for him, and whatever criteria that he is using. What is the criteria will be ISAE 3000. So the criteria that he is using, whether it's something that he can understand and use it for his engagement, etc., should be very clearly followed upon. The next one is sufficient appropriate evidence is required on which to base the conclusion. He needs to get sufficient appropriate evidence. So similar to that of audit engagement, assurance engagement, before he gives an opinion, he need to have sufficient appropriate evidence. Documentation, he has to have proper documentation on how he came to the conclusion, and what was the evidence should also be taken into consideration. So if you look at all this, acceptance and planning and continuance, it's very much similar. It's very much similar to that of the audit engagement. So here as well, it's almost the same. So there's nothing different. Like he has to follow the practitioner have to follow the Code of Ethics, quality management. He has to review the subject matter. He has to collect evidences. He has to, before he gives an opinion, he has to document the evidences and give a conclusion and report. He has to document and as well as give a report for the engagement, etc. So it's very much similar to that of a audit engagement. So what are the elements of an assurance engagement? This is something that we have already learned, right? So the elements of a assurance engagement follows the mnemonics CREST. CERST. C stands for criteria. R stands for responsible party. E stands for evidence. S stands for subject matter. And T stands for three-party relationship. So this is something that we have learned. So it remains the same for the assurance engagement, and criteria, responsible party, evidence, subject matter, and the three-party relationship. Something we have learned in AA as well as in the beginning videos of AAA. Now let's quickly focus on the subject matter, like as a difference. So like what changes when it comes to an assurance engagement and audit engagement? The first thing that changes is the subject matter. So this is what the first thing that will change. In assurance engagement, the subject matter will be something different, could be something different, whereas in audit, it could be the financial statement. So when you look at the subject matter, it could have a physical characteristics. For example, we might be asked to review, or the practitioner might be asked to review a capacity of a facility. Like he might be asked to review a capacity of a facility. He might be asked to give you practitioner might be asked to review the building and give an opinion on the building, like building valuers. He might be asked to review the airplanes, like airlines, right? So, and give a valuation. Car, it's a valuation. So assurance is a broader term. It doesn't mean that, okay, it's associated only with finance professionals. No. If there is a practitioner and if there is a responsible party who's preparing the subject matter and the practitioner reviews the subject matter and gives an opinion to the user, it's an assurance engagement. So civil engineers who are doing valuation, building valuation, are practitioners. Then classic example is diamond valuers who are doing this for jewelry shops are valuers. Then there are various other examples like real estate agents or maybe car, car companies like second-hand car companies. There will be practitioners who would be checking the car and giving a value or opinion for the value of the car. So all of those will have elements, like the same elements would be followed, and a specific subject matter could have physical characteristics as well. It could be based upon the performance of an entity. Like performance, it could be internally for internal communication, like management reports, or performance of employees, or performance of a specific sector, or a performance of a specific subsidiary, etc. Or it could be externally as well, like financial statements, etc. It could be financial performance as well as non-financial performance, like integrated report as part of the public sector governance, kind of like a non-financial performance. For government companies, we don't look at how profitable they are, but rather how beneficial they are to the society. Charitable institutions, we look at how good charity they have run over the past few years. That's what they'll be looking at. And there will be certain value for money aspects as well, like performance could be non-financial, could be including value for money, like economy, efficiency, and effectiveness, etc. It could also be about the operations and reliability of the company, of the systems of the company and processes. Like example, internal controls, like it's a part of the system of a company or a process of a company. Or it could be controls over IT system. So we might be asked to review the controls over IT system. We might be asked to review internal controls over financial reporting. Internal audits, what do they do? It could be relating to specific internal audit as well. So internal audit is part of the assurance engagement. Only thing is that internal audit is a report to the management. But it's still, if you look at internal audit as a practitioner, they are following all the elements of the assurance engagement. They have a criteria. They have a subject matter like the internal control systems, processes of each of the companies. They have a responsible parties, the company management who prepares it. They have a three-party relationship. They have the user. It could be audit committee. They have the responsible party and they have themselves. So it's a three-party relationship as well. So that's what we would